They say originality is one of the keys to YouTube, so it's a good thing that I am the only one doing a review video on Lost Ark. Lost Ark's had a kind of a crazy week. First we started with this, and then we went to this, and then we went to this. So they've had a week. And I think it's important to point out here that reviewing a game this early is difficult. So that's why we're not going to be focusing about this game at endgame. We're going to be focusing on the story and the leveling process and really the first impression you're going to get from the game if you load it up today and try it out for your first 30 to 50 hours or so. My review for this game was a bit like a seesaw. I would go back and forth between loving the game and hating the game. I had multiple times where I was like, okay, I just can't continue with this game because I was just not very impressed. It was not the kind of game for me. And I think part of that comes from the fact that ARPGs have historically not been the games that pull me in. I think I played through the campaign of Diablo 3 and the campaign of Diablo 2, and that's about it. So I want to point that out now so that you get a little bit of an idea of where I'm coming from. But the game grows on you like a fungus. Why do we say like a fungus? That's a really weird, specific thing to say. Have you ever had a fungus grow on you? I don't think I have. Yet. So, as I was going through this again for the second time, I had almost quit by level 20, which is, I guess, level 10. Or is it? It's weird. You start at level 10, but yet when around level 20 in the game, I was ready to quit. Again, fast forward just a little bit to level 23 because I had determined, and this is still my thought, is I am going to go to max level to see what endgame is like. Things had changed a little bit. The story had started to give me some of the feels that I got when I played Warcraft 3 years and years ago. I'm not saying it was on the same level. It's not, at least in my opinion, but it had some of that vibe to it. So I was starting to get into the story a little bit more, and that continued to get into the story a little bit more. But more importantly, the gameplay started to get a bit better. The difficulty started to ramp up a bit more and a bit more. The dungeons, which to me had been one of the biggest highlights, continued to get better. The game, to me, if I could put it in just one quick package here, it takes time to get into it. And I understand that many people will actually quit the game long before they have a chance to see if there's any good into it. But what are the main takeaways here? And at the end, we'll go over into the positive and negatives, but what are the main takeaways? Well, the biggest takeaway is it is on rails as f. You are going to do the exact same thing that your friend is going to do, and that friend is going to do, and that friend is going to do. The leveling process is questing. You are not going to be grinding mobs. It's not how it works. You're not going to be grinding dungeons. That's also not how it works. You are going to be questing to get enough experience to level up. And that's how this portion of the game is going to be. And the quests themselves are an interesting thing. It's not that they're bad. They're not bad. They're quick. A lot of them. They're very quick. And for the most part, they propel you forward. But you don't always have to go back and forth. That doesn't make the zone bigger. That makes it more of a pain in the ass. There's a difference. So the quest propelling you forward was actually, I think, an interesting dynamic that I saw. But we talked a little bit about some of the negative parts already, but we have to talk about the most positive part, at least to me, and that's the combat. The combat is very satisfying. The animations are great, but the combat itself is just, it's very responsive. It's satisfying. It takes a little while to get used to the directional with the camera and everything like that, especially if you're not coming from isometric. The combat just feels like you're having an impact. It feels very good. Now, and I played a striker, so that's where my combat experience is coming from. But I really, really liked it. I mean, just look at this. Like, isn't that freaking cool? Like, I mean, okay, maybe it's just me, but jumping up in the air and like landing on everybody and just destroying their faces, like it's really cool combat. I don't know that I can stress that enough. It's fun. And the boss fights are fun. Sometimes they're a little easy. Sometimes it feels like their telegraphs give them too long of a pause. But if I've seen anything with the game, it's that as you continue to progress, the difficulty continues to progress. So that's how the bosses go. That's how the regular combat goes. It gets harder the higher level you are. I will say that this game is definitely lacking early on in the MMO RPG part of it, the MMO part specifically. Yes, there's other people on. In fact, there's essentially over 1 million other people playing right now. But I wouldn't know it. Because outside of a handful of dungeons that I did with people, the game has routinely told me through evidence that I'm better off just playing by myself. Even when you think about it, when the dungeons, when you have the opportunity to do dungeons, they're trivialized at the lower levels by people. They're trivialized, honestly, by you at the lower levels. So I guess you're just trivializing the trivialization. It doesn't feel like it ramps up enough early on. And this was a pet peeve I had with New World, where sure, you might have some of the best group content at the end game, but no one's gonna know what the fuck to do because you didn't give them any group content in the beginning. In New World, you had to get to level 20 to do a dungeon. It's not quite that bad in this game. There is a dungeon before then, but the grouping part is, to me, so essential to an MMO, and it feels lacking in a large part of the game. It feels like it should be there throughout the game. Give me a reason to group with other people. Give me a reason to not be antisocial in this MMORPG. Because if all I have to do is just do everything by myself, why do I need to be online? Talk quickly about itemization as well. Itemization is going to be kind of what you would expect from an ARPG, not what you'd expect necessarily from an MMORPG. It's very much, is this an upgrade? Yes, equip it. It's not the way that I prefer my itemization in an MMO. I prefer individual items to be legendary. I prefer like the Golden Afridi boots from EverQuest, where you just know visually that that item has a reputation. Now let's end with a kind of a consolidated, the positives, the negatives of Lost Ark, the leveling process through the first 30-40 hours. So the positives, you gotta start with the combat. The combat is amazing. It's very satisfying. The animations for the combat are great. The sound is fine. The sound works. The sound fits with the combat, but the combat feels very impactful every time you do anything in the game. It is by far the shining point of the game for me so far. The quests kind of could be both a positive and a negative. You know what? We'll get back to quests. For a top-down isometric world, it still feels alive. The game is very pretty. It has a lot of lovely swaying trees and grasses and different biomes that breathe life into the game. The creatures, which you don't really get to see that much of, are really cool and unique, and they have a very awesome art style, and your character looks really cool in a lot of ways. And it just all kind of works. And then you throw in the vistas and the cinematics and how they make the world feel larger. They've done a good job of making the game look good. But I'm gonna put the story in positive as well. Like, if you would have asked me this maybe 2 days ago, I would have put the story in the negatives, because 2 days ago, where I was in the story was very generic, very good versus evil, very angels and demons, and you're the chosen one and the only chosen one. But it kind of changed a little bit. It's had a few interesting twists, a few great cutscenes. I haven't watched a ton of anime in a long time, but I could not help but see a couple scenes and be like, that's fucking Goku and Vegeta. You know, there's definitely, if you like anime, if you like good versus evil, you're probably gonna enjoy the story. Now the negatives, we gotta move on to the negatives, because there are negatives. There's big negatives, even here. What I'm not gonna touch on with the negatives here, what I'm not gonna touch on with this video, is the things that I have not encountered yet that could be an issue later. So the negative I'll start with beyond that is actually that the game starts very slow. It's almost pushed me away from the game twice. It's easy. It's incredibly easy. You don't get to do very much combat early on. It's a lot of running around, and the difficulty, even in the dungeons, the difficulty feels like it ramps up too slow. It takes too long to start needing to use a potion. It takes too long to start needing to use your dodge. It feels like the game holds your hand a little too long. And by the end of the game, I may be like, I suck at this and I'm getting my ass kicked. I probably will. I've already died in game. Like, it's happened. It's happened a couple times. The same ramp up issue also applies to the story. The story that I put in positive. It starts out bland. It starts out really bland. It takes a long time to be interesting. Why does it take so long? You know, most MMOs have a honeymoon period, the period where you just appreciate the game, and then you start to see the warts, you start to see the negativity. It feels like it's kind of the opposite here. Like, there is no honeymoon period. You jump in and it slaps you in the face, and then maybe if you can handle the slap, you'll start to see the positives coming out of it later. It's a weird way to build your game. And finally, the world itself is a negative for me. Saying that the game is on rails, a big part of that's the world. Is the maps are very small. Little corridors, zone to zone. The world itself feels very small, very compact, very single player ARPG. It does not feel like an MMORPG. It feels like a single player game, which there's not really much wrong with that. It's just something to know going into the game. And we're going to circle back to quests because I wanted to put them as neutral. I wanted to put them in positive, and I wanted to put them in negative. Because the negative part of it is that you have to do them. But the positive part is that they're very quick and they propel you forward. Some of them like literally do just take a couple seconds, like you move a rock. But I don't like that I have to move a rock instead of killing this horde of enemies that's attacking. Let me kill the horde of enemies that's attacking instead of moving the rock. But the game tells me through quest experience and through combat experience that I am better off moving said rock and taking 3 seconds than killing hundreds, if not thousands, of critters that are raiding the towns and killing the townspeople. So you move the rock instead. Fuck the townspeople. That's my review of the game. It's going to be up to you whether you want to give the game a try. It is a free-to-play title. It's out now on Steam. There are some mechanics in the game that may make you shy away. I would recommend looking into those mechanics, especially the itemization, where at later levels you will be upgrading items with a chance to fail. And with that chance to fail, having the ability to purchase extra attempts, that alone may be a deal breaker for you. So you should go into the game knowing that. But the game does have promise. The game has already been successful. It's been successful in Korea, and it's been moderately successful here. I wouldn't read too much into the mixed rating that it has now on Steam. It's really early. People get mad at things. Wait for a little while until it settles down. Then if you're one of those people that looks at the review to see if you want to play, take a look, read through, see how many hours people have been putting in, see if it's been worth someone's time or other people's times. Otherwise, just give it a try yourself. For me, it took about 25 to 30 hours to start really enjoying the game. But now that I've hung on for that long, I'm starting to really enjoy myself and looking forward to logging in again. So that's where I'm at. I want to play more now, whereas at the beginning I wanted to throw this in the trash. So leave it up to you. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Have you enjoyed the game? Have you been playing the game? What do you think? Leave your comments down below. But please, as always, be respectful. Remember, like, just because you don't like the game doesn't mean that other people are not allowed to. And just because you do like the game doesn't mean that other people are not allowed to not like it. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Redbeard Flynn. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and I will see you again next week. Thank you very much.